There are other video game casting directors who are like, if you do not deliver the exact lines in this exact format, if you ad lib, if you do this, I will automatically delete your audition and move on. And you don't know.
That's
You don't know
hard.
which they're going to be.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Hello, fellow gamers, and welcome to the Video Gamers Podcast. Video game tester, voice actor, lead game developer, motion cap actor. These all sound like any gamer's dream jobs, but are they as fun as we think they are? Well, we're about to find out because on today's episode, we're going to be diving into the world of voice acting with an inside look at the fun and challenges voice actors can face. But first, some introductions are in order. I am your host, Josh, and joining me, if we don't hear at least 3 impressions from him this episode, I'll be sorely disappointed. It's Ryan.
I'm not a puppet. You can't force me to do anything, man.
Come on, Ryan. You know you want to.
No. I'm classically trained, bro.
Oh, man. And joining us, he is an actual voice actor with work in games like Dark Souls 2, several Warhammer games, and much, much more. It's the one and only Chris Tester.
hello, hi. Hi, lovely to be here.
Oh, Chris, we are so excited to have you, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to hop on the podcast with us. It's not every day we get to interview a voice actor, man.
Oh, they are sprouting up. There are quite a few of them, so I think you're timing it absolutely perfectly to kind of ride this wave. As every other person goes, that would be a really cool thing to do. I could get into that. I'm sure it's not very difficult or very hard. And here I am to prove that that's the case. They'll let anybody in now.
It's kind of like podcasting, Chris. They'll let anybody do a podcast.
You get your blue Yeti microphone, and if you can do some impersonations, an orc voice is always particularly useful. And then just go at it. Just spam everyone. That's the way.
Man, we just unlocked a secret. Josh, I'm out.
No, totally.
Ryan's starting his new career.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to get a little bit of insight into what it's like to be a voice actor and work in that industry and how that ties into gaming and things like that. But Chris, I wanted to just kind of give you a little bit of an introduction for the listeners. We've had a chance to chat before recording it over email a little bit. And I got to be honest, man, this is an impressive resume. So for the listeners, you have worked on games such as Fallout London, Poppy Playtime, Warhammer Total War 2 and 3, Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader, Dark Souls 2, Lego Marvel Superheroes 2, Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, and perhaps my personal favorite game, Bard's Tale 4.
Oh, there's the niche pick. Nice. I like it.
Dude, Bard's Tale 4 is one of those games that I think is so drastically underknown and underrated. And for an older gamer like me that loves that kind of old style, like dungeon crawler blobber is the term for that game.
Yeah.
I saw that and I just started nerding out, man. I was
I like In Exile were the devs behind Bard's Tale were one of the first kind of studios that I worked with consistently on that and on another couple of kind of like smaller kind of projects and that kind of thing. And they were always an absolute delight. And the great thing is that they're total pros in that there's not lots of endless workshopping. It's like they're like, we know what we want. We've done this 1,000 times, but they still give you room for a little bit of creativity as well. So you feel as if you're not just being given line readings. And that's kind of the balancing act. With voice acting especially, it's like you want to be creative and you want to give your best and surprise people. But at the same time, you need to deliver those lines as they need it as quickly as possible. So it's, they were a great team to work with.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
I love that game so much. So shout out to Bard's Tale 4 for anybody that has not played it yet. So.
I am excited because I'm a huge Fallout guy, and so I haven't had a chance to get into Fallout London yet. And now I'm going to be just hunting for your voice the whole time.
Yeah, it's in there. There are a couple of different characters, but yeah, it's pretty distinctly.
Awesome.
So, so Chris, one of the things we're doing, we actually kind of started this series where we're giving people insight into the kind of the video game industry and various aspects. We just actually did an episode where we talked to a psychologist who does nothing but kind of gaming psychology and trends and stuff like that. Obviously, we're talking to you because voice acting, I think, is really near and dear to a lot of gamers, and it's something that we actually converse about a lot because I think number one, it's sort of that that attractive field where it's like, oh man, that's such a cool job. I wonder if my voice could do that. We're gonna touch on like animation and even some like talking to some devs for like development of games and stuff like that as well. Right. So we're really excited to have you. And it's funny that you mentioned like the creativity that you get or don't get, because that's actually something I want to touch on a little bit later as well. So, but you know what? Let's start off with the really important stuff, and that's that you are indeed a gamer at heart. Right?
Yes. Yeah. So right back from ZX Spectrum was my first thing. So when in the UK you used to get magazines with little cassettes on the front that you could load up, and these cassettes that it took 25 minutes to half an hour to load up. You played it once, you immediately died, you had to reload, all of that kind of stuff. Then gravitated to Duck Hunt, then a NES, then a Mega Drive, then a Super Nintendo as well. I managed to straddle that divide.
Oh, nice.
And then PlayStation. I kind of jumped straight there. I had a little dalliance with a Sega Saturn, but that didn't go too far. I'm not gonna lie.
That's the case for a lot of people.
So I'm now Team PlayStation, unless Xbox have any exclusives they want to cast me in. Have been since then. But it's interesting how my journey has changed, because I think in terms of my own time that I have, it's increasingly limited as a 43-year-old man with various bits falling off at this stage, and other kind of responsibilities. So the games that I'm most passionate about actually probably being a part of are also the games that I probably have the least amount of time to play, which are the ones that actually have the time to explore a longer narrative, more in-depth characters, all of that exciting kind of stuff. What that actually means is that 90% of my gaming right now is like FIFA in my pants for 15 minutes before bed, because I'm living my best life.
No, we understand the hey, we had to make a gaming podcast just so we had excuses to play video games.
It keeps you responsible. It's like an accountability group.
It really does.
I like that. Yeah. And we just hopped into Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and so that's going to be a bear.
Which looks amazing.
Yeah. But you,
for
after
slow fighting.
Yeah, and we've been playing Marvel Rivals for like 2 months. We haven't had any really games to cover, and so now we're like, oh, we got to buckle down for this one.
Time to get back to work.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I wish, it used to be, you used to be able to justify it as like, oh, okay, I'm doing research. So, all of the different kind of takes on characters, or how do you play a protagonist where they could be good or they could be evil? The whole Jennifer Hale in Mass Effect Masterclass, where it's like, you don't want to be boring and monotone, but at the same time, you don't want to be too evil or too good if the player choices kind of go that kind of way. But now it's kind of like with YouTube playthroughs and everything, it's like you can just watch that.
Yeah.
That's one thing I never understood. I want to play the games. I don't want to watch people play the games. And maybe that's just the old man in me coming out, because it's like, I know there are a lot of people that love the like Let's Play and the playthroughs and stuff, but it's like
the whole thing. And with Poppy's with Poppy's Playtime, the last thing that you name checked, thanks very much for that. I mean, I didn't realize quite what a culture that whole playthrough thing was. Like, the game was released a week ago, and it's got playthroughs with no commentary or minimal commentary with like millions of views already. And it's like, why? How? I mean, great. But
don't you just want to play the game? Wouldn't that be better?
Yeah.
So
anyway.
So we did have a chance to chat about some of your favorite games, and I got to be honest, I love this list, and Ryan is going to really geek out with you as well, at least on these first three. So you did mention Red Dead Redemption 2. I think widely at least I know we agree that's probably the greatest video game ever made. you know, in terms of like scale, story, you know, that kind of stuff. We bicker a little bit back and forth on whether the gameplay is better or worse than God of War, which, you know, is my favorite, but that's, what an amazing game. Disco Elysium. Now, you mentioned Disco Elysium, which I love because for people that have experienced Disco Elysium, they know.
Freaking
and
Cujo.
then for people that haven't, they don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing with Disco also is that I found that it took me a long time to get into it. I think I played that first section, you know, when you're coming to, and do you want to just settle in the darkness, or are you going to actually find your tie off the top of the light and together and look at your weirdly grimacing face in the bathroom? I think I played that through about 6 times before I really pushed through and was like, okay, what is this game? And actually, I really need to role play. I need to decide what kind of character I want to be rather than trying to. There's a right answer to these questions, and I just need to figure out exactly the right combination. So as soon as you actually embrace the gaming element to it and that kind of very Dungeons and Dragons role play aspect of, I'm Super Cop.
Yeah,
I'm the best. I'm amazing. It's great. And actually embrace it on those terms, or the alternative. That's when it really comes into its own. That's when the art style and the vocal performances and the writing and everything just kind of seems to come together. But the first few times, it was the game that everybody told me I should play, and I was just like, there's that really annoying kid I want to beat to death.
Oh, Kudo. Kudo's the worst.
Oh yeah, Kudo. I said Cujo. Kudo.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but no, I mean, to me, obviously the fallout of the studio afterwards is kind of like the tragic thing of it. But, you know, of its time, there's nothing quite like it, I don't think.
Now, did you play the original version that did not have the voice characters?
Yeah, that was the first one that I bounced off twice.
So I did the exact same thing.
Yeah. I dove straight into the voiced version, and honestly, I gotta say, the voice acting in that game is absolutely phenomenal, and it made the game. I even said, as good as this game is, and as much as I love it, I don't know that I'd have the patience to sit there and just read everything. Yeah, so that is one of those examples where I think really good voice acting, hands down, made that game what it is that people get to experience now. So. But yeah, fantastic game. And then another one on your list is The Last of Us, which is way up there for Ryan. I famously, I do confess this publicly, even though I am ashamed. I got about 4 hours into Last of Us, and then I just never touched it again.
Right.
I know that's a tragedy. I watched the HBO show, so I know.
Only
all
for
the
you.
stuff
It's
about
only
it.
a tragedy for you.
Yeah, this is true.
That's true.
I mean,
Shame.
I admit it, man. I don't try to hide it.
but I mean, again, it's one of those things. It's one of those games that when you revisit it, and I've probably replayed that about 3 or 4 times with the remastered, whatever version it is now.
Yeah.
And you do kind of go like, they have cleaned a lot of this up, but some of it's a little janky. Or you see, in terms of the actual mechanics, you go like, okay, if I want pure adrenaline, this ain't the game. Or if I want pure stealth, this isn't necessarily the game. Or I was much more conscious of the improvements, the mechanical improvements that the sequel made. Regardless of what you think in terms of like the narrative ambition of the second one, which I personally am a fan of, you know, whether or not you think it succeeded in what it was trying to do or whatever. But yeah, it's not the basic game mechanics that really sell it for me. And so I can understand, like, and I think it's especially when a title like that is bigged up so much. There's part of me which is like, well, screw you guys. I've got my own sense of taste.
Yeah.
I was a bit like that. To be honest, I was a bit like that with Baldur's Gate, which you know, is a revelatory. Don't get me wrong. It's just not my type of game.
I get that.
And I think it's a time poor aspect of it. But I was just like I fell down into a dungeon and got my ass handed to me like 12 times consecutively, and I was like, I don't like this. And it's like, either I make it really easy to the point where the stakes are minimal, and I'm like, I can't, or you know, I've got to spend time getting good. And that's my problem as a gamer right now, is that I don't have the time that I used to have to get good.
Yeah.
And there's something between the difficulty levels of kind of going like, no, this is too easy, and this is this is bludgeoningly hard, and I only have a limited amount of time, and I'm supposed to be relaxing now, and it is not relaxing. And at the same time, like, I know countless people who are in that game. It is now very much a reference point for a lot of the casting breakdowns that come through. The number of times that I see Astarion as a casting breakdown, and you're like, oh, Sherlock.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So you've got to be aware of the performances in that game. But yeah, as for the actual mechanics of it, I was just like, this is overwhelmingly big, but an amazing achievement. But
it is funny too, as it's something we actually talk about as we get older, where the barrier of entry or that learning curve of a game can actually get to the point where it's like, I don't have the time to put into this. And it's like you said, it's why a lot of times we wind up just playing FIFA, or for us like Marvel Rivals, where it's like, I don't really have to think about all of the systems in this game. I can just log in, I can zone out, and I can have a good time. So
yeah, and you can catch up with friends and all of that kind of good stuff, and it's like great. It serves a different purpose. Yeah.
So Chris, I gotta touch on this because I love this take. We when we were chatting over email, we always like to say, hey, what's like a hot take that you have? And you wrote back, and it's funny because this actually made me chuckle. But you did mention that you thought that the recent Zelda games, so Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, were basically overrated. Is that fair to say?
Massively, yeah. I can't stand them.
Yes!
I really can't. I mean, I own both of them, so well done, Nintendo. You got me. You got me good. Capitalism wins. As does all my childhood memories and associations. Because big fan, especially in the Super Nintendo days. N64, I was away doing other stuff. But yeah, I dropped back into those worlds, and again, there was just overwhelm. And also, I think, and this is where the kind of like narrative experience is, I'm kind of like, what's the story in these games? I'm not, apart from the most formulaic boilerplate, I'm kind of like, what personality has this kid? He doesn't have one.
He doesn't know.
Because he's an avatar of me and I have no personality. Okay, I get that. But where are we going with this? It's the big bad, but I don't care enough. That kind of thing. And then with the latest one, it's like, well, what we're going to do is we're going to give you even more choice with lots of technical learn. And it'll be great because it's like the biggest, most open sandbox ever. And to me, my brain just goes like, oh, great, more stuff not to be good at. And so for me, it becomes crippling. I walk around these worlds and they are beautiful and they are stunning, but they don't have that, like something like The Witcher did so well, which was like, okay, I've got to get from point A to point B, but guaranteed. I mean, Red Dead Redemption does this absolutely perfectly as well. Between points A and B, within 10 to 15 seconds, something is going to come and distract me.
Yep.
And it's like, then do I go into the woods and, find the racists hanging somebody? Or then do I go and, delve into this other kind of side thing? It's all so concentrated at the same time. And it's all rich enough so that it's not just a pure Ubisoft experience of, I've got to collect them all. I've got to finish everything right now. I've got a shopping list that I need to do, apparently, of completely inconsequential tasks. So there's that level of richness. I didn't find that in the 3 hours in total that I attempted to play either of those two games. But that was it. So again, that is probably a bit like with The Last of Us with you. That's probably my loss, but I am okay with that loss.
Yeah.
I cannot foresee, some great transformational moment where it's going to get better.
Yeah, I think they're good video games, but the response to them and calling them some of the best games ever, I think, is what we kind of take like some issue.
I think there's an element of Nintendo.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Oh God, that's part of what made us fans of this since childhood in the first place. You want it to be good. You want it to be good as when you were a kid, and I'm like, but I don't feel it. It's not doing the same thing for me anymore. It's simple as that.
Yeah.
We sound like the exact same gamer. Honestly,
you guys are very similar.
Because that's the one thing I did.
Thanks for a great podcast. Lots of non-conflict. Great. Yes, you are right. Your opinion was very well thought through.
Yep. Yeah. The one thing the Ultra Hand kind of I had fun with near the end, just making goofy stuff. But overall, I just thought, well, it was great. as a game, it was not what everyone touts it to be, in my opinion. So yeah,
it becomes this huge epic. Oh my god!
Yeah,
and
it's like
like,
yeah, it was good, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So one other thing, and then we'll kind of get into some of these kind of insights into the voice acting industry and your experience with those. But you did mention that you love games where you can kind of get this emotional involvement with the characters that are in the game. Red Dead Redemption 2 being high on your list, obviously that explains that. Have you ever played Cyberpunk?
Yes, I have. Yeah,
Okay.
I have. It's curious. It's like I love CD Projekt Red for so many things, for so many reasons. You can hear the butt coming.
Oh yeah.
At the same time, it's kind of
I was like, where's it going with this?
by the way, guys, like, if CD Projekt Red, I don't know which next one. Yeah, I'm readily available and UK based, just saying. But it didn't land for me. Like I like the execution is phenomenal in that game on so many levels. Like on paper, love it so much. The release is a huge issue for me. Just
absolutely.
For so many people,
heart.
it was like I'm a console guy, and it was like that build up to it's my Christmas game. The one time I'm gonna sit down and I can actually say like 3 full days reserved out. I'm just gonna be playing this game, and then it doesn't even load. So it was already on the back foot, and then when we actually kind of like get into it, I just didn't like, and this wasn't a performative issue, but I didn't like the protagonist very much.
V?
Yeah, V.
I get that.
And to be honest, I would say I only played the male V, not the female V. I've heard that, some people prefer the female to the male, and, so.
Right.
So I've still got about 20, 25 minutes in, and I've enjoyed it, but I like. If someone said like, so what's the story of V? What are the big main kind of plot points and everything? I'd be like, well, he's gonna die.
He's a little crazy.
He's a bit time poor, and yeah, Jackie's not well.
That's a good point. I like it.
But other than that, I'm kind of a bit like, I don't know. So yeah, and I think it was also because it promised to be so many different types of games. So like when it kind of went into one of the first missions where it's kind of very covert and you've got to zoom between all of the different, security cameras and listen into bits of the conversation and that kind of stuff. And then it was like, well, maybe you can do that again sometime in your playthrough if you really want to go out on a limb and do it, but you don't have to. And so I never did. And so for me, it didn't quite land in the same way. So I enjoyed it. I admired the ambition and the scope, so much style, everything about it. I've obviously heard that DLC maybe
it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I think that's will probably get me into doing a fresh playthrough of it.
Yeah.
Because that does sound like a different thing and really kind of like coming together. But
it makes you feel like a spy, like legitimately, like you feel like you're James Bond at that point in the game.
Amazing.
Like
It's worth it to check it out again for a full playthrough for sure.
I mean, they're operating at such a high level to it.
Yeah.
That's fine. But I think this is where the tension kind of comes in with somewhere like Red Dead. Red Dead is, I would arguably say, a little bit more of a linear experience. Since some of the story beats are so well crafted. Fundamentally, it's your relationship with the villain in something like Red Dead Redemption 2, or even in the original kind of Red Dead. That twist, that turn, is completely soul-destroying to me. Whereas in terms of the big bad in Cyberpunk, I'm a bit like, I'm dead. Time is running out. I've got to make a couple of choices. Keanu did some bad things, or did he? I don't know. I mean, there was just so much. But again, this may be also partly down to, playing Red Dead Redemption at one point in my life and now trying to play Cyberpunk at another point where I've got like an hour or 45 minutes. Whereas Red Dead Redemption, it was like, it's half a day minimum.
Yeah.
I've got to ride my horse now.
Dude, Dutch has a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I was more of a kind of resting actor throughout during the release of that game. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was allowed to explore that a lot more.
Yeah. Well, we've got a plan, and that's to talk about some voice acting, but we're going to do that right after we take this short break. Come on back here. All right, we are back and we are chatting with Chris Tester. And, you know, we are lifelong gamers, and one of our tenets on this podcast is we are not professionals or people that honestly know the gaming industry all that well. We're just gamers at heart. We've been gaming our entire lives. So we're absolutely pumped to be able to kind of get a glimpse behind the curtain into these various aspects of the gaming world. And, you know, I think our natural curiosity is going to be pretty evident. So forgive any excitement or dumb questions that we might have on this,
No,
but
not at all.
it's kind of who we are too. We ask the dumb questions because it's the things that we're curious about. So let's just kind of start off with a general overview. Like, what is a day in the life of a voice actor like? I mean, just a top-down view. We're going to get into some more specifics here and kind of hone in on that a
So,
little
do
bit,
you
but-
mean specifically as a voice actor who just does games, or a voice actor who does?
In general, honestly, yeah,
In
because
general?
we see a lot of crossover between like gaming and anime and even like animated series and stuff like that. So I would say just
Sure.
in general.
Well, I think it still varies massively. So there are a lot of the talent that you would be most recognizable to a lot of people will just go to exterior studios for when they're recording projects, and quite often they'll be cast in those projects or get auditions for those projects through their agents. That might be an acting agent or a voiceover agent. So my very first voice acting gig was Dark Souls 2. And that
Oh.
was through my acting agent at the time. I went to a studio to audition, like literally had 15 minutes. They gave me a picture of a half man, half scorpion. I assumed that it would sound, I don't know, a bit like a monster, and they said no, in your normal voice, and I was like, sure. And then I went away, and then 2 weeks later, I was booked in, and I did the same thing. And so you're dealing with an audio engineer, and then whoever else is directing, who may be there or may not be there, that kind of thing. However, I would say 99% of my work is recorded from home, and that includes some video games as well. So I was a theatre actor for about 15 years, but I've been also full-time voice acting from home for about 7 years. So I have a bedroom that I've converted into a professional recording studio, and I do pretty much anything and everything. So I do corporate stuff, corporate narration, documentaries, commercials, and I do animation, video games, that kind of stuff as well. Whereas a lot of voice actors will only do, the video games and the animation maybe and character-based kind of stuff, and maybe the odd commercial if the money is really, really good. So yeah, that's the kind of balancing act. For me, as a result of that, I also like a lot of the games that I'm in is because I've marketed myself or I am out there in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
So in terms of game devs that I admire, I will definitely be shooting my shot and introducing myself and saying, this is my show reel, this is my calling card. If you ever need someone like me, you know where I am, building relationships with casting directors who may be representative of different studios. So that's about finding out who they are, building a relationship with them so that they know what you can do, what you can't do, what your unique strengths are, whether or not you can record from home, whether or not you're based near a larger city, like I'm in London, and it's still advantageous for me in case they want to
Right.
get someone in last minute. I've got a in-person job and an in-person audition tomorrow in London
Nice.
town.
Oh, cool.
And that's partly because they want to see you working in a space. Also, for them, technically, if everybody is recorded in the same space, it means that everybody will sound the same.
Right.
They're not
Yeah.
like, oh, the noise floor has gone a bit kind of crazy, and you said you didn't gate this, but you definitely did because I can't hear you breathing. All of those kind of things. But what that actually means in terms of the reality is that for a lot of people, it's like, maybe post on social media to get a bit of a following and a bit of a profile, but otherwise it's down to your agent to get you the opportunities. And from that, if you book at one or two of these studios, you may be called in much more. I do that. I have a voiceover agent, but for 99% of my work, I'm doing my own marketing and my own outreach. So that's in-person, networking. That's networking, variously across the internet. That's social media. That's cold emails. Pretty much anything and everything. So I've got to run it as a bit of a business because it is my full-time thing. Yep.
Wow, that's super. That's super neat to get that insight. So my daughter, she's in theater now. She's in high school, and she absolutely loves it. And she's always in there practicing lines and dances and all that stuff. Is there like kind of a practice type thing that you do? You're a lot more voice orientated. So do you have like sequences you work on, or is there stuff you do for that to prep for roles? Or
I mean, I used to do from like 3 years of drama school training. So there was like vocal warm-ups that I became kind of absolutely enthralled to, really, using your body as a physical instrument, that kind of thing, which is very important to do. And so there's that, and then the physical warm-up kind of aspect as well that goes on top of it as well, because it's a full body thing. It's not just the voice.
Yeah.
It's much easier to be able to make those kind of choices freely if you're using your whole body. It's the whole reason that rather than having a very small booth, I made myself a room to thrash around in, because it just makes my job easier, a lot easier than if it's a confined thing. Because the very first recording setups that I built myself from home, I was in a little corner like this and I couldn't really move. And that affects how you can act, just kind of like necessarily. So there was that. And then from a voice acting perspective, the number one thing that I practice is cold reading. Cold reading, i.e. stuff that I've never read, haven't even scanned before, immediately presenting it myself, pressing record, and going with it.
Oh,
That's
that's
right.
neat.
Don't make mistakes and make choices on the fly, because most video game scripts are recorded like that. You do not see the script in advance. You do not even get to read ahead of where you are.
oh wow.
So it's like, let's do 2 to 3 takes of every single line. Let's go. We're on it. So you'll have discussed in advance, maybe, okay, so your character is here, you're talking to X, Y, or Z person, you're in the middle of a battlefield, so you've got to shout a little bit, what's your relationship to that person? Okay, but don't overstay your welcome, because time is money and it's already kind of like ticking. So that's part of the craft, is like knowing what to ask and what to skip and use your imagination for, but then it's all cold reading. And every time you make a mistake or you mispronounce a word, or anything else, that's on the money of the other person. So you've got to be good at being able to do that as well, technically. And also then as the bonus kind of challenge being like, well, that's great, because what I can do is I can take the file and I can put it to the font that I want, and I can... No. Almost all of games, for the technical purpose of editing, are going to be on a spreadsheet, which you cannot annotate. So if someone gives you a weird pronunciation of a name, you've got to write it on your body or somewhere if you need to remind it, because you can't annotate it as you go or anything else like that. So it's all about the discipline of being able to take a cold bit of text and immediately kind of give a take on it, and know halfway through your first take, what am I going to do with the second take that's going to be different? What little adjustment am I going to make, other than going like, I'm going to do it slower?
Yeah.
I'm going to do it more or less excited. So it's an interesting and informed take, rather than just like, yeah, your first takes are always good and your second takes are always not so good. So yeah, other than that, it's not really much.
I mean, honestly, that's super interesting, because, like, again, it's one of those things where I think as gamers, we sort of glorify voice acting, and we think, oh, you just have to have a good voice and then you just talk. And I think
After hearing that, dude, I'm back. I don't quit anymore.
Yeah. But I think that people miss the part where, you are having somebody that wants you to perform in a certain way or certain lines and not mess up your words and not have to do multiple takes and things like that.
It's a technical thing, because you don't want to get into your head about it, and
Right.
ultimately, it's creative, but it's also the reason why some people will go, well, we'll get an AI to do it. And this is where you frame yourself as like, if you're hiring an actor, then it's because you're interested in their creativity and their choice and what they might bring. If you're a game dev who literally is like, I know exactly what this sound is that I want, and that's what I want, then you'll use an actor until it becomes cheaper to use an AI to do exactly what it is that you want to do.
Yep.
And I'm not judging you on that one way or the other. If if the AI is technically sourced, I mean, if it's like sourced legitimately and with everybody's consent, and all of that kind of thing, then sure, go do whatever you want. But that's not what I'm necessarily striving for as an actor. Is being given line readings, is what people
Right.
would say them, like, this is exactly how you say the line, because a lot of directors aren't actors, so they'll think it sounds like one thing in their head. What actually comes out of their mouths isn't always exactly what they intended. So then you're kind of doing almost a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy of a not particularly good performance in the first place. Like, don't get me wrong, like, if there's a certain intonation that you need, tell me what the intonation is. I'll find my own way to it, and I'll try to do it in as fast a time as possible. But yeah, that's where the kind of like the tension lies. It's like you've got to be free and easy and creative, but at the same time, tick, 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 tick.
Yeah,
Right.
clock's running.
You
Yeah.
So let's just I'd love to kind of dive into this a little bit more, because
Yeah.
one of the questions that I wanted to actually ask you about is how writing in a game affects like your role, because again, it's one of those things as gamers I don't know that we fully comprehend. Like, you mentioned that you're given a script or you're given lines, and sometimes you're not given things in front of that, so you don't know what's coming up in the future.
I've got a perfect real world example of this, which I think it's totally fine. Or I've shared it before, but which is with Rogue Trade Warhammer, where I play a companion character. I didn't realize that my character was romanceable in any way until we got to a line, which obviously suggested that I was romanceable. So I kind of said it whilst recording for the first time, but then I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. So my character's romanceable in this, and they were like, yeah. I was like, okay. Kind of immediately thought back to the last 8 hours of recording that I'd done, going, would I have done anything differently there? And it was, in terms of the information that was communicated at that particular time, that was just something that had been skipped slightly as a result. So yeah, and so you've got to kind of make these adaptations on the hoof. But we had the writer in the recording, in all of the recording sessions as well, and that's where trust essentially comes in. If they're getting what they want, what they need from you, then you've got to trust that, and whatever discoveries happen along the way. And you just kind of got to go with that and be cool with that.
Is there feedback like both ways though? Like if you're, if you have like some writing and you're like, this really, I mean, this would sound way better if I did
this
it this
is really
way.
bad, guys. I mean,
but like,
I don't know
that's
who
gotta
wrote
happen,
This
right?
character would not say this at all.
yeah. Oh no. I'm sorry. I don't think I would say it like
Yeah.
that. No.
Yeah.
No, that's a quick way of just being like incredibly precious. It depends. You got to read the room. But there are some people who are definitely like, yeah, if you want to change it, if you think it's better in a certain other way, then by all means change it. Of course, there are other franchises where it's been through so many different levels before it's reached you. Maybe it's gone through translation and someone's had to sign off on it and all of that. It's kind of like, we cannot change a word. Do not change
Interesting.
you are to your, even if it is
wow.
more in character for you.
Right.
Because this is what has been signed off in terms of the translation, and we will have to re-record it if you insist on recording it in that way, because it makes you feel more like an actor. So you just have to have a very honest and open discussion at the get-go in terms of what are the rules with the text. Can I improvise on this at all? Or with voice acting, there's a lot of what some people call pre-life. So it's the noises, non-verbal noises that you make before or after or during a line, that kind of thing. Some directors love it. Some go like, no, we need a clean cue into it. Don't like warm up into the line and then give me
Okay.
the line after. Well, the thing is, it's like, no, we need, well, the thing is, so just act it quicker.
Yeah.
So you just need to gauge. So you need to be aware of what questions you can ask and how quickly, and then make some informed choices off of the back of that.
Wow. So, I mean, I think we probably know some of the answers to this, but like what you're talking about here with the directors kind of getting real hard line on certain ways things are said and types of things, with you kind of branching off. What is your take on this with the emergence of the AI and them doing that and bringing it into this kind of realm?
Well, I mean, the thing with AI, really, I mean, the whole ethically sourcing thing is a huge, massive thing anyway.
Yeah,
Because, like, if
definitely.
you're using 11 Labs, even, that's arguable how ethically sourced that is. I
Yeah.
know we're getting to a point where it's like, well, it's a copy of a copy of copy, so who cares, right? But it's like, well, a lot of people. But anyway, the one thing that you can't really do well with an AI still is direct it exactly. You can tell it, to speak faster generally or slower or put an emphasis on a different word, but it's still ongoing and it's still laborious. So it's kind of like that will necessarily take a lot more time to do. Also, because there's no cognitive process going through it. It's not understanding what it's saying. It's literally just kind of rereading the thing, observing whatever emphasis that is there. So that's also an issue, I would say. In terms of really nuanced kind of like stuff, it just simply can't do because it doesn't understand what it's saying. And also, you will never be surprised, which fundamentally goes back down to why you want to hire voice actors in the first place. If it's purely just to execute a vision that you've already had, you just need it made flesh, then maybe AI will get there eventually at some stage. But if it's like, oh no, I want to surround myself with people who are better than me at what they do to up my game and make my writing or my direction or my thing even better, then I don't trust AI to be able to do that because it's still fundamentally a copy of a copy of a copy, and it's predicting, going on what's been based before, and people's, it's the median, it's the road, that's right in the middle. Whereas, sure, I can give you a really bad choice on lines 2 or 3. But there'll be a bold choice that's out there if that's been kind of like discussed, and my whole job is to kind of surprise you and myself by, oh, actually, that moment could work in a completely different way. Oh, great, fantastic. Now we're actually learning something, and it's greater than the sum of its parts, as opposed to only ever as good as the one person's vision.
There's no discovery. There's no discovery.
No, exactly. And I'm not saying that every single recording session that I do, I definitely, blow a director's ears off. I mean, obviously I do.
Yeah.
Don't be modest. What are you talking about?
But no, there've been that. It's fantastic to have the biggest compliment is when someone says, like, I never imagined it was going to be like that, but it works. And it works in a different way because, it's filtered through my experiences and all of those different kind of things. So it's that synthesis, that meeting point. So that's when I think it becomes exciting.
I think as gamers, I mean, especially just as people in general, like, AI, everybody's interested in it. We're seeing it more and more in things, but it's also very sterile. Like, I think we can just kind of tell, like, we see that with graphics. We talk about the uncanny valley, and it's like, hey, this looks close to a human, but I know there's something weird, and our brains just kind of go, yeah, something's off. And I think we see that, or we feel that, at least right now. Who knows where it's going to be in 5 years, but I do think there's that sterileness to it where it's like, yes, it can do something, but there's just no soul behind it. There's no emotion or something like that.
I don't know how much of this is more in terms of like our after we've played the game, but that whole thing of like our feeling about the media. So, for example, the actor who played Arthur Morgan, who I've completely blinded the name on right now.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I can't remember.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like his whole process and how he's spoken about the role and his approach to the role and all of that kind of stuff is part of the experience of that game. Is going into that Roger, whatever his name is.
Roger Clark.
Yeah, exactly. So delving in kind of behind the scenes in his process and what made Arthur to him and blah, blah, blah. That's all fascinating, insight. Or Neil Newbon talking about his approach to Astarion and a character that he worked with for 4 years and how that character changed massively because of who was playing them. What Astarion started out as being, and then the thing that, people talk about again and again that Larian did so well is that their writers worked in tandem with the people that they cast. And they then started to write to those people's strengths and go like, okay, this is something that we can build. So it's a collaborative act as opposed to I'm the genius with all the answers. Do my bidding, children.
Right.
Try harder until you get it right. And I know which room I would like to be in. That excites me a great deal more. It's why I can't stand Hideo Kojima. Sorry, I know a lot of
no. Honestly, I get that take.
But I get his whole Star whatever thing, you get that sense of, oh, he's such an auteur. Yeah, that's one word I'd use for him. It's like he's probably an incredibly nice guy, and if I ever end up in a project, I'm not now. This will come at some point, like categorically, definitely. But yeah, there's just a vibe there that I'm like, that's not a space that I would necessarily thrive with. And so yeah, I think that opportunity to really riff, I think is great and can be massively undervalued because ultimately, at the end of the day, if I feel replaceable, then I am, and I'm not going to do my best work.
Yeah.
Fundamentally.
Well, that's what we always try to do, even with this show. Our show here is we don't want to have a tight script. We don't want to have certain exact topics we're going to cover. We like to hit some points, but we just kind of hang out and vibe and let it flow and let things go where they're going to go naturally. And you can feel that as a consumer, I hope for our listeners, but then also as a consumer of the games, you feel that bond and that connection and you can tell that everything melded together and it's natural.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love getting this insight into some of the difficulties and like I said, the behind the scenes stuff. Like, I don't know how writing in a game affects voice actors. And if you kind of shake your head at a line or something like that and go, this is terrible.
Yeah,
there's
you never do that out loud.
not outwardly. I get that for sure. But, and again, this kind of goes back to, I think as gamers, we sort of think of voice acting as a dream job. And it's one of those things where it's like, I have actually had a couple dream jobs in my life. I was a dolphin trainer for a couple years. My primary career now is working for a fantasy football podcast. And it's like, so I kind of get the mentality that, oh, this is a dream job. But even as like a dolphin trainer, there's still just the behind the scenes stuff where you're just like, dude, this is still work, man. Like, it might seem really cool, but there's still just there's work, and there's not the nice parts about a job always, even if it is a dream job. So what is, like, for you, what is the worst part about voice acting?
The number one thing is comparison. It's like the perennial acting. But I think we all do it to a degree. You look at your peers and go like, how have they got that?
Yeah.
What are they doing right that I'm doing wrong? Fundamentally. Then you add, social media into the mix because you have to. And it's amplified even more because obviously if you're a successful voice actor, you want to leverage that. You have to leverage it.
Right.
So, you do take that booth selfie or that I'm outside a studio selfie because it shows people what you're doing, and it's also an affirmation of, yeah, I've got here. Yeah, I'm going to own this, and I'm not going to say like, how dare you? After having finally got to that, worked with Side Global or OMUK or Pit Stop or whatever on this huge kind of franchise, which because of NDA you can't talk about. But anyway, once you get there, of course you would, because otherwise, what's it all for? It's a celebration of all of your effort and time. However, at the same time, there are at least 20 people all seeing that story and dying slightly inside.
Yeah.
I know because I've been on both sides of that.
Yeah.
Every single time. And you can say, like, someone else's victory is not my defeat. But there's still that insecurity always of like, what are they doing right that I'm not doing? And not quite knowing, if there is. It's that lack of autonomy, which is the scary thing. Which is why I try and source my own work by building relationships as much as I possibly can organically. And then I'll audition for your stuff, but so that I'm one of maybe 5 or 10 options and not one of 100 options. Because I've been on the other side of casting in the theatre world. And I've seen it a little bit in the voice acting world, but for a lot of people, for that first round of auditions, you've got like 100 clips of the same 10 lines. Your ears aren't going to be as fresh about 20 in.
Right? Yeah.
And by about 40, you're questioning your will to live. By about 60, what are words? By 80, it's kind of like we've only got 20 to go, so we should. And by 100, it's like, I don't know what did we even press play? I can't.
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't know, that kind of thing. So that's when you see the whole number of random factors in it, and I think that's probably the toughest thing to do is to kind of like take it on the chin and then keep going and finding ways around it and not questioning yourself too much about it. But you've not got ultimately different directors and different casting people do have different tastes.
Right.
So there's not a definitive like, well, this is what you need to do to nail an audition, because they
Then
have
everybody would do it.
Yeah,
Well,
like
right, yeah.
one casting director who I know is like, if you want to use music in your audition, if you want to change the order of the lines or anything, go for it.
Yeah.
Be
kinda
creative.
nice.
Make
Yeah,
it
right.
an opportunity to be as creative as possible. I want to be creative I want to see your creative response. Make it a fun thing. And it's no surprise that they were originally an actor who's now become a major casting director in video games. There are other video game casting directors who are like, if you do not deliver the exact lines in this exact format, if you ad lib, if you do this, I will automatically delete your audition and move on. And you don't know.
That's
You don't know
hard.
which they're going to be.
Oh
that's
yeah.
So ultimately, you've got to take an educated guess. You do a little bit of research whenever you can. You do workshops. You pay for workshops to learn from these people and what they like and what they don't like, so you can make informed choices. The difference between doing an audition ABC or AABBCC. That is a whole kind of huge thing in terms of line orders, and some people prefer one thing and some people prefer something else. So that's it really. Just trying to keep in the game
Yeah.
is the tough spot.
That's awesome. I did have a quick one I wanted to ask. Speaking of just
Yeah.
hitting lines and stuff, so when you're doing these reads, and especially before, like you mentioned, the cold reads, do you have like a bag of characters that you pull from when you try stuff out, or are you hitting them on the spot, what you think they're wanting to hear, or how does that work?
Yeah, I have archetypes. Some people would say they're generalizations, but yeah, there are there are certain archetypes that you immediately go to, and then I almost certainly will use a little reference, like for example, I use Laban, which is a movement system. Just to make some clear choices. So are they fast or slow? Are they direct or are they indirect?
Oh, okay.
Are they more ringing or are they more pressing? And it's not like this is definitive, but it just kind of gives me a scaffold immediately. Physicality is kind of what leads it. So where do they lead from? Do they lead from the chest? Do they lead from the nose? Do they lead from the back? Do they lead from the belly? And that will immediately, before you start throwing like, is there a different accent into the mix or anything else like that? It's the breathing pattern, like how encumbered are they? That kind of thing. So just trying to get a sense of the physicality, which will then affect the voice rather than can I make an interesting voice first? Because that's when it becomes, some people are great at being able to do that and they work that way around, but that doesn't work for me. Like I don't record what my voice is doing and listen back and then fine tune it. I've got to go kind of physicality first and then it comes from there.
Wow. This is so cool.
I love. Yeah, this is
awesome.
I'll be honest. Like, it's really cool to get this insight because I think we have this idea, and it's really neat to learn these kind of ins and outs on this. So we got to start wrapping things up a little bit, Chris. So I got to ask a dumb question.
Sure. Yeah. Go for it.
But when you do work on a game, do you go back and play that game? Is it one of those-
Sometimes.
Okay. Does it depend on just it looks like a fun game, or is it like
No, he's like everyone, any of us listening.
everyone.
I mean, I
everyone.
would. I'm the kind of person where I would absolutely play them because I want to see like how my work affected it. Even if it's critical of myself.
I don't need to play the game though to find
guess
that
that's
stuff
true,
now.
right?
It's like part of my job is to kind of like find the material so I can build it into my portfolio, rather than me claim to be in these games but no one can find the evidence. So that's good. But like I don't have 100 hours to put into a proper playthrough of Rogue Trader. I'll be completely honest with that.
Yeah.
Like, it's my type of game if I had the time to play it. But so I've purchased it. I've played the first 5 hours of it. So I've just met myself.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'll stop playing now.
Yeah.
Right.
But then I'm more interested in other people's experiences of, the character and, how it's resonated with them. Whereas I'd be kind of second guessing my choices. And for a lot of the stuff, to be honest, whether it's a character where it's like you're mainly just going, how can I die in however many different kind of ways? Yeah, I'm not going to revisit that because of my performance. Amazing though it may be. It'll be like either it's my type of game or it's like, oh, yeah, that's me burning to death for 32.5 seconds. Bang on. Well done.
Yeah.
And so, and then you were in the game, and then they made you buy it.
I didn't
Do you get
ask
free
them. I could have
copies?
I could have asked.
You didn't.
No, generally though they don't. They don't.
Really?
No, you don't.
Okay. That sounds.
Really?
Yeah, no, unless I think maybe if you ask, but it's kind of not frowned on. No one ever suggests it. And also it's quite often with a lot of these with the bigger games. It's like, so what's this game called? We can't tell you.
I
Oh,
guess that
okay.
makes sense too.
When's it being released? Can't say. To the
Okay.
point where, like,
That
a
makes
game that
sense.
I didn't, there'll be games released and you're like, oh, is that out now? What was that? I don't know.
That's
Okay,
funny.
like as people get more savvy and in terms of like the social media possibilities of getting their voice actors on board, that's happening less. But it's still an instant sometimes that you'll just be like, oh, that was that thing. Didn't realize.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, Chris. So as we wrap things up, we did want to take a minute to share some charity work that you're passionate about, and that's the National Association of Voice Actors. And you are currently a part of the campaign to raise money for voice actors that have been affected by the Los Angeles fires. What can you tell us about that, and where can people go to donate or help that out?
So if you just Google NAVA or NAVA, depending on your accent, National Association for Voice Actors. They're mainly based in the US, but they are an international body. Obviously, fundraising, yes, for victims of the LA fires. A lot of my friends in LA who have like home studios. So not only have they lost their homes, but they've also lost literally their livelihood. The home studios that they've built and constructed to be able to do their work. And so NAVA is, set up this kind of GoFundMe. And what they're doing is, people can kind of directly contact them to go into detail about their particular situations, and NAVA will help them out. NAVA are kind of like a fantastic representative body for voice actors generally anyway. They're incredible advocates, especially for rights in terms of AI rights,
Right.
looking after voice actors in that respect. The rider that even when we were organizing this podcast, I
Right.
said, could we add this to
Which
the
is
contract?
great, by the way. Which is great.
Yeah, so it's literally something that any voice actor should make sure is added to their contract if there isn't a clause in there already. Just kind of going like, I'm not giving you my rights to giving you the rights to use my voice once it's recorded in any way kind of possible, because that is a stipulation that has been in contracts since the beginning of time of recorded media, because no one thought that AI would be a huge thing.
Yeah.
So NAVA is kind of first and foremost like giving people tools to kind of counteract that, but educating people it. And they also do a lot of kind of free workshops for voice actors at various different levels as well. So as an organization, they are worth checking out if you're interested in voice acting or you're fans of voice actors at all.
That's awesome. We're going to include a link for people in the episode description, but also as a thank you to you, and honestly, to all the voice actors that bring us so much entertainment in games, we are actually going to donate $1,000 to NAVA
nice. Wow.
as just a thank you for all that you guys all do.
That's
honestly,
why you asked for my card details. before
yes,
the-
exactly.
Yeah.
We're going to need the
see.
3-digit code on the
Okay.
back, though.
Yeah. Security code,
okay,
please.
yeah.
So,
Okay, sure.
but yeah.
007. Yeah. Okay.
we have
Oh,
mad
that's amazing.
respect.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Absolutely.
I mean, thank you for giving your time for us, for our listeners. Again, gamers, I think we genuinely have a lot of respect for voice actors and what you guys do and the enjoyment that you bring to our favorite hobby and the medium and things like that as well. So,
We missed one clause in that. 3 voice acting lessons for Ryan. Looks like.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That's all.
20
well, wait a minute, because that's going to lead
24
me.
hour.
That's leading me into my last question here, and that's Chris, do you think you could do a better Arnold Schwarzenegger impression than Ryan?
Oh gosh.
Okay, Ryan, do you want
Ryan, you gotta hit us with one.
Memorize. Yeah.
Okay. Welcome, Christopher, to the Video Gamers Podcast. Thank you for coming on and joining us today.
No, I can't compete with that. I have never attempted.
What are you talking
I've
about?
never-
You are professional.
I'll be back. Yeah, no, it's not happening.
Oh, yes.
I'll do it as an orc. Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, beautiful.
Oh, man.
That was a thing of beauty.
Well, my
back then.
my bag's empty, so
Yeah, that's all he's got.
Beautiful. Yeah,
I did put Ryan on the spot. He had no idea that was coming, by the way.
when I'm sick, I can do a pretty killer Kratos too. So
Oh wow.
Only when he's sick. Yeah. One time he nailed it. Well, listen, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show. I mean, this is just, honestly, it's been a ton of fun, but it's been really neat to kind of just get this look.
Yeah, I'm psyched, dude. That was awesome.
At voice acting. I know, it really is. And I think for our listeners, it's very eye-opening on a lot of the things that, you know, it is work. It takes talent. It's not just somebody that maybe is born with a good voice and somehow falls into jobs and things like that. You know?
I mean, sometimes that helps, though. Don't get me wrong.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
all
sure
for
it
that.
does.
Nepo babies. Let's go. Yeah, great. But yeah, I mean, yeah, sometimes it takes a bit of work. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for just giving us this insight. I mean, it has been awesome to have you on the show. You've been a lot of fun. So thank you for just taking time out of your day and for our listeners to do all that. You know, thank you for your support of Nava. Like I said, we're going to throw in the support there as well. And we will include a link in the episode description for people that feel like they may have it on their hearts to help out with that as well. So
Thank you, guys. Thank
awesome.
you so much.
Well, that does it for this episode, everybody. Thank you, Chris, for joining us. We have a lot more of these kind of looks into the industry and talking to people that make gaming possible and that are, you know, allow us to be passionate about this and just make it fun. So thank you for what you do, Chris. Thanks again for joining us. That's it for this episode, everybody. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that plus button, that follow button in your podcast app. If you haven't done so already, make sure you rate us 5 stars. We'll see you on the next one. Until then, happy gaming.
See ya.